Hey guys, it's Danny. So today I just got my confirmation that what I have been experiencing with orchids is actually cyanobacteria and not any type of algae. If you're older on my channel, you already know that I complain all day and all night about algae and about how I cannot grow my orchids in anything water retentive that is not shaded. Hence why I use my decorative pots or opaque pots, or I put the bark layer on top just to shade the sphagnum moss and everything that sits wet from having light so it doesn't develop algae, because in my experience, these quote-unquote algae have damaged not only roots and root tips specifically, but also stems. I had jewel orchid cuttings that some of you lovely people sent to me that I completely lost because I kept them in an open top sphagnum moss and the stem was completely burnt. Now, as far as I was concerned, I was absolutely sure that it had to do with the algae because, well, I'm here, I noticed everything, I put all of the pieces of the puzzle together and I make an opinion. There were many people who did not believe algae can create such mess and such destruction, and to that I say, well, yeah, I agree, algae alone is not enough to create such damage, but some of you suggested that maybe I'm dealing with cyanobacteria, and I absolutely agreed with you. And in more recent times, I said that I'm dealing with either algae or cyanobacteria. Well, 'tis the day, this very day, when I have my confirmation. So what you see here is one of my tanks. It is very fresh, and I do have some algae growing, particularly on the immersed parts of the plants, which means the parts that have been grown by nurseries up top, not in water. If you don't know about aquatic plants much, don't worry, I shall make a video in which I will tell you how nurseries grow them to avoid algae and pests and so on. Practically, they grow them in very high humidity outside of the water. But when you put them in the aquarium, that part dies off and you have to wait for the submersed growth. Now, the part that dies off in the tank is very prone to algae, especially in a new setup, and this one is 2 weeks old or a little less. So what you see here, all of this green mess, it's absolutely normal. But here's the thing, you guys. This is not any type of algae, this is cyanobacteria. How do I know? Well, because I have experience with aquariums. I have a lot, maybe more years of aquariums than orchids, I don't know. Maybe half and half. I know how cyanobacteria looks like, but I didn't have it in 20 years or so. And it just happened to appear. Now, I noticed it, I realized what it was, and if you know a thing or two about aquariums, you know there is no such thing as a cyanobacteria eater because it is not algae. There are shrimps and snails and fish that do feed upon algae, but not cyanobacteria because it is a bacteria. It is actually quite a toxic bacteria. So I decided to clean these parts myself, and wouldn't you know it, the smell of the cyanobacteria in my tank is one-to-one identical to the smell that I get from my orchid pots that have quote-unquote algae. Hence, and this is a very scientific approach, by the way, I'm kidding. It's anecdotal, don't worry, but for me it's enough. This is proof to me that what I'm dealing with orchids is cyanobacteria. I just forgot how it smelled like. I know it smells awful and bad, I just forgot exactly how it was, which is weird because it's a very distinct smell, very chemical smell. It's one-to-one, you guys. This stuff on my plants smells exactly like what I have on my orchids. Hence, I personally am convinced that I'm dealing with cyanobacteria, which makes a whole lot of sense. Excuse the noise in the background if you hear it. Neighbors are noisy as usual. So it makes sense because cyanobacteria can actually release quite potent toxins that are harmful not only for plants, but also for living creatures, including humans. It's not okay to live with cyano near you, and I certainly don't intend to. Hence why I think if I didn't justify enough all of these setups that I do with my orchids in which I shade everything, there we have it. I think this is justification enough. It's cyanobacteria. Algae is fine. Cyano is not fine for me. I do not want to live with cyano around. I shall do my very best to cover the pots as best as possible. Now, if you're a fellow aquarist and you don't know much about algae or cyanobacteria, maybe you're at the beginning, I'll link you to an article or actually a whole website that talks about the different types of algae you can encounter in your tank and why they are produced. Some of them maybe are normal some of them maybe not so much. Anyway, it's very useful. Check the description down below. And as far as orchids go, yeah, there you have it, guys. This environment is prone to cyanobacteria. I didn't have this in Romania, but I do here. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Anyway, so that's what I wanted to show you and tell you today. Happy I kind of solved it. I always kind of knew it was cyano, even if it's anecdotal. For me, it's enough. I know what I'm talking about and I trust myself. And if you ever experience very, very foul smelling, what looks like algae in your orchid pots, maybe it's cyano, maybe you have to deal with it because it's not good. It does release toxins. So be careful with it, protect your hands, wear some gloves when you're dealing with these types of orchids that have cyano in their pots, and act fast because they can damage roots and stems. Alrighty, so with that said, let's end it here. Hope you found this useful, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!